Welcome back to the Sermon of Bacchus. This is an episode specifically for Cardi B, but also for anybody who's been persecuted online for believing what you believe or thinking what you think, saying the things that you say. Hi, Cardi. I'm Birdie. It'll be nice to meet you one day. What you do is you get people around the world to sing and dance. Men, women, children. You get so many people to be happy, to have joy in their lives. That's what you do. Now, these people who are in the Judeo-Christian camp, in this specific part of the Judeo-Christian camp, they want to motivate people with guilt. They want to give you ideas that will make you feel bad about yourself and about what you do. Right. Part of it is because they are jealous that you're getting everybody to sing and dance and they're not able to do that. But a lot of it has to do with the history of the church and the just the doctrine of sort of getting people to feel bad in order to control them. And so they're trying to control you, and I'm happy to see that they didn't obviously they couldn't do that to you, but they were going to try. And at the very least, they were able to get some shine off of you. So they're sort of sending out a signal to anybody who's like them and who doesn't like you, and they're saying, come join my group because I don't like her either. And so they did that effectively. That's they're going to be known in history as antagonists, people who want to push other people down so that they can feel bigger, so they feel better about themselves. But I heard you on online talk about how you're Catholic, and I was raised Catholic. Right? Did not work for me for obvious reasons, right? Because I'm now resurrecting the religion of Bacchus. It's about 3,000 years old, and I created a nonprofit so that we could build a church of Bacchus in South Florida. So it's the god of wine, theater, and nature, right? Some people say it's the party god. Right up your alley. All right, you don't have to abandon your faith in whatever it is you believe, with Jesus and Mary and the things that you're interested in for your spirituality. But this spirituality is it's not irrational by nature because a lot of people associate the word religion with irrational. This is a mistake. Try to associate religion with the word organization. It's a way of self-organizing. When you see it that way, you understand that some organizations can be irrational and others can be very rational, or wherever you are on the spectrum. So here we believe that it's in our true nature to be rational because we speak, right? So this what I'm doing right now is the special power of humans over the other animals. And so that allows us to be rational. So because speaking is just a natural thing that humans do, you could make the argument very convincingly that it's in our nature to be rational. So which means to think properly, to understand that you have to be able to falsify things, and you want to use the evidence as much as possible to figure out what makes the most sense. And religion makes a lot of sense. Being spiritual makes a lot of sense. Having faith makes a lot of sense. It's a big part of being able to survive in this world. So nothing irrational about it, but there are irrational things that people believe when they get into these religions. So you're some version of Catholic, and I just wasn't sure if you had ever looked into some of the history of the Catholic Church, because the the Christians, when they took power in Rome, they actually persecuted the Bacchians because Bacchus was very popular back in ancient Rome. They had sculptures and statues of Bacchus everywhere, like McDonald's today. Okay, if you dig up the archaeology, it's everywhere. So it was very popular, and now it's just gone underground, and now everybody's in the nightclubs and dancing and singing, and they're in the theaters and in the movies and on Netflix, and they're drinking and they're changing their consciousness with different substances, and that's where it went. It became less formal, it became less ritualized, but it's still huge, all right? We have hundreds of millions of people who celebrate what you do and what everybody in your industry does, entertainment and spirits. And I'm pretty sure you hadn't considered this or thought about it because it's in the interests of the competing religions to keep this on the down low. They don't want anyone thinking that there's another alternative out there, but there is. And that's Church of Bacchus. Now, I wanted you to look into the history of the Catholic Church because I'm not sure that it aligns with your beliefs as much as you might think. I had to actually write it down because the Catholic Church, they actually apologized for a series of missteps and crimes against humanity that they committed over the centuries. And so I wanted to review some of those for you that you can look into them yourself. Now, these are not my accusations. These are the church's acknowledged mistakes that they made. All right. So Crusades, the Inquisition. They burned people alive, specific famous people that they didn't agree with. So they engaged in something called forced conversion. Murder. They institutionalized torture and legalized it as an actual doctrine. They imprisoned Galileo for telling the truth about the planets. They didn't like his idea, and so they wanted to control his idea, and by doing that, by controlling his body and locking him up, they were believing that they were controlling the idea. We don't have to review the countless tens of thousands of children and orphans who were raped and tortured in church-run schools in every country in the world. Just in the United States, I was reading something a few years back where in Pittsburgh, they had thousands of cases that the church documented of child sexual assault, rape, and abuse. And there was this one instance that always sticks in my mind. There were 3 daughters, and each one of them went through this Christian school, this Catholic school. And one by one, they were all raped by the people in charge. And none of them actually told their families during their years. So each child in the generation was systematically basically tortured, and in some way they kept control over them, and so nobody ever found out about it until after all 3 of them had gotten through the school and been abused. That's just one case that happened, and that's on the record in Pittsburgh, in this country, in this century. So this isn't just ancient history. It was in 1964 when the church finally gave up on the doctrine that the Jews had committed deicide on Jesus. And they were complicit with Hitler. They signed treaties with Hitler. They were silent during the final solution. Right, the church and the Catholic Church in Germany were asking that Hitler's birthday be celebrated every year until the year that he died. So, the African slave trade, injustice towards women. When you really look at the actions of this organization, you have to start to wonder what is it that's happening here? People corrupt institutions maybe, but I think there's a lot going on with this whole we need to control the way you think, we need to control the way you behave. Once you go down that path, it can get very ugly, and it did. And so now they're still big. There's still 1 billion Christians in the world. It's not like it's going to go away. It's not like I'm not trying to shame Christians into changing their faith. You can't change your faith any more than you can change your taste in music or your taste in food. So whatever you feel is right for you, I want you and everyone else to follow that faith. But we're not going to be tolerant of this kind of behavior. And I think that's why the Catholic Church apologized for doing those things. If you look at this country, the United States, there's a lot of people in cages, people who wanted to change their consciousness or sell substances to people who wanted to change their consciousness. All of them have been demonized by the system that was built on Judeo-Christian values. Remember prohibition, remember all of the things that they've done to try to control people's behaviors, people's thoughts, and people's actions. Everyone knows this solution is just as real as it was when prohibition was eliminated, which is if you want to allow the police to do real work, which is to prevent crimes like murder, rape, and theft, then what you do is you free them up from needing to chase around people who want to change their consciousness. We can just stop doing that right away. Legalize all drugs. Take all of the drug cartels, have them become publicly traded, publicly audited corporations. Get all the pushers and the plugs and all the dealers and give them jobs in these pharmaceutical companies and let them all compete on the up and up. No more of this hiding all of these things and shipping them around and playing cat and mouse. Let's just legalize all of it. Let's legalize all of it. Even fentanyl. Ooh. What could Merck and Pfizer do with fentanyl if they were able to properly and scientifically manipulate it so that we knew the doses and we knew the concentrations? What about coca leaves, which is obviously used to make cocaine? But when you take that, when you have altitude sickness, if you drink coca leaf tea, instantaneously the altitude sickness disappears. Coca-Cola put cocaine in their drink before, I guess at some point they weren't allowed to do that anymore. So it's possible. We can all agree that this makes the most sense, to not waste the resources of the police, the very limited resources, on chasing around people who just want to feel a certain way. All right, these are the freedoms that you receive when you join this organization, the Religion of Bacchus. All right, this is more of a decentralized religion. We're not here to control you. We're not here to tell you what to do. Don't hurt anybody else, and you're good. I think if you did legalize everything, then what you'd have to do is set up a lot of urgent care clinics and a lot of doctors' offices where doctors could prescribe things scientifically and based on the needs of the person. We could get it all under insurance. We could all the corporations could profit from it. The governments could get the tax dollars from it. And probably a lot fewer people will die as a result of drugs once they're all out in the open and available. Yeah, we're going to have some people who are addicts. They're always going to be addicts. We can treat them better if they're not afraid to talk about it. So this is the most obvious, rational thing that we could do to solve this problem. But Cardi, I really want to thank you for creating this great worldwide movement of singing and dancing, and all of the musicians out there who perform with you and who have crossover stuff with you. You guys, you're doing God's work. And you can look into my other videos about what I think a God is. I don't believe in the celestial dictator version of a God. I think the people who believe in a celestial dictator have a sort of hidden desire to be a celestial dictator. So we're not down with that. I yeah, I just I'm really happy that you're here, and I want you to keep pushing, keep pushing, keep doing what you're doing, because you're liberating people's spirit, and you're freeing them from this fear of sex and this fear of their own sexuality. You're putting it all out there. You're sort of legalizing the thought of of personal freedom and personal expression. And don't let these hating, antagonistic versions of any faith stop you from what you're doing. I know you won't, but I just want you to know that the church is behind you. We support you, and once the church is built, you're welcome anytime. Come have a glass of wine and say hi. So thank you once again for joining the Church of Bacchus sermon, and I'll see you at the next sermon.